And we are live. What's up, everybody? A little bit of a different look today. Mark is unable to join me this week. Sad state of affairs when apparently work is more important than Generation Orange. You guys are more important to me than work. I'm just saying. No, in all seriousness, Mark, have fun at work. I'm sure you will. But I do get to have the honor and pleasure of having a special guest with me this week to co-host. Introduce yourself, sir. Everybody, I'm sure, knows you, but introduce yourself all the same.
Well, thanks, Sean. My name's Hattie. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Hattie comes to us with a wealth of opinions. I wouldn't necessarily say knowledge. No, I'm just kidding. Wealth of opinions and knowledge to boot about Dynamo and Dash, which is a big reason why I'm excited he's here because it has been a little while since we've talked a little bit of Dash. And believe me, we want to talk some Dash today for sure. There's some very important things that have taken place. For those that don't know, the Dash did play Tigres just recently, or earlier this week, as a matter of fact. So we'll go over that. We're going to talk GM candidates. The Athletic posted an article earlier this week, yesterday, I believe, 2 days ago, running through the list of MLS's top domestic GM candidates that are out there. And it's a pretty long list. I think there's about 10 or 12 maybe in there. And we kind of want to break that down just a little bit. We're also going to run through the kind of changes that were announced. Was it earlier today or yesterday, Hattie? The Leagues Cup and CCL changes?
Yeah, that was just yesterday.
That was yesterday.
Wow.
Man, this whole week is now just starting to kind of blend together. We're going to hit Texas Derby. Yeah, so real quick, for those that don't know, this is Generation Orange. Even though the title of the stream says Rocket League and Vibing, I can assure you this is not Rocket League and Vibing time. This is Generation Orange live show time, which means we're going to talk Dynamo. We're going to talk Dash. We're probably going to talk a little bit of U.S. Women's national team. We may even talk a little U.S. men's national team if it comes up. Who knows? Maybe a little English Premier League talk. You never know what you're going to get with the show. That is for sure. This week we're going to be running 7:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. That may become a more standardized time as we continue to move forward. Still working out the kinks and the details with that, but our wonderful producer and streamer extraordinaire Nestor has a job that requires him to drive home from the Woodlands in the evenings to basically the West Belt area. No, it's even further than West Belt, off the West Park Tollway, way down west. And so I'm pushing it back 30 minutes to give him a little extra time to get home and get situated. So looking out for our boy Nestor. But with that said, boy, let's just dive right into it. I am, I am sitting here looking at this list of topics to cover, and I think you know what we're gonna do it. I've been debating this, and we're gonna do it. We're just gonna jump right into. Let's talk Houston Dash. Let's give them the shine that they deserve right out of the gate. Hattie, I know you're a huge supporter of the Houston Dash. You've attended a number of games this season, a number of matches this season as you've been able to. And I know you've been in the supporter section over there. I kind of want to get your feedback on what the supporter section is like for Dash matches. And especially since you've also had a chance to be in the supporter section for Dynamo matches, tell me what the differences are. And of course, let's talk that Tigres match this past weekend. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. So let's dive right into it. Houston Dash, tell me, what's the supporters' experience like with the Houston Dash?
So I'd have to say the Houston Dash's support section. It's really so far it's young, it's tight knit. Like if you're a fan and you want to really be involved, you can really have a chance to be a part of creating something new. Like they're not even 10 years old, and really everything's just there. You can, if you want to create chants, you can do it. If you want to, be the voice that can be heard across the whole stadium, you can do it. It's pretty great in that sense because if you want to be that builder, you're there. And so,
Real quick, want to throw this out there, Hattie, because I know you were a little nervous coming into this. A few things to note from chat. Show is already better without Mark. Thank you, Harry, for that comment. Zero video stutter now. That was a consistent problem with Mark. No longer seeming to be a problem. Thank you, Nestor. And then, of course, Jake mentioning how long a drive it is. And I can tell you, Nestor is like, yeah, that's a long drive. He makes it now every day, so he knows. But going back to the supporters fan experience, young, and obviously very tuned in. Would you call them the rabid kind of hardcore? If NWSL has a hardcore fan, like fan dynamic there. Would you call them the rabid hardcore fan dynamic of the NWSL? Just the general NWSL supporters culture, I think.
I'd have to say they were probably one of the more outspoken within the league, not as higher tier as like a team like Portland. Portland's fans are just something else. We get like
Oh, you can say it on the show. It's quite all right.
yeah,
You can use the language.
yeah. No, they're just loud, out, proud, and they could even throw out smoke, and and no one really complains. So we got some effort in a lot of things we need to do in order to like build up, but I think the Dash fans currently are building something for themselves.
So talk to me about BCR and what you know about the Bayou City Republic. Obviously, their leader is Sarah Gilliland. She's done a fantastic job since day one, basically igniting and starting the supporters group there. Obviously, they started with plastic buckets overturned to turn them into drums, and I know they added some actual drums. I know they've been trying to build out a little more of an instrument kind of presence to add that extra dynamic, that extra feeling. Looking at that, if you take a look at it from that perspective of the support and the way that they support, is there anything that you can see that they're lacking? And the reason I'm asking that question is not to put them on the spot, but in turn to put our friends that are watching on the spot. If you have a knack for the thing that he says or the things that he says are lacking, you need to sign up and help out, because you know what? The group can't grow if you're not signing up. Go ahead, Hattie.
I think that's the very thing. I think people just need to show up, show out. BCR was really like welcoming. This was my first year as a Dash season ticket holder, and so I kind of just walked on in without not really knowing too many people. And so I just kind of like followed them on Twitter and just kind of walked on in, like pretty much more like waddled. Didn't really. I was kind of a little nervous, kind of like this right now. But they were super welcoming, and honestly, they'll just hand you an instrument like on site. They don't even know you, and they'll give you something to play. And so, at the more of a matter of the issue, we just need more like of the diehard supporters to come show up and participate, like, and just help the fan base grow for the Dash. It shows so far like there's a lot of like it's a big family crowd, but they're really like open to having like individuals who are more cruder than most. And honestly, like we were shit talking the refs, and like we can just say what we want, and everyone loves it, and we have nothing stored against it. So really, just show up, help out, and make the noise. That's, I think, the biggest thing that the Dash fans at BCR needs.
The one thing that always sticks out to me, I think, in a visual perspective, is that huge Texas flag that they have that's in the Dash colors that I've seen Jake wave a few times. I've seen a few other people wave a few different times. I'm curious, from a visual perspective, I'm sure you've had a chance to kind of see things, from the outside perspective as well. When you see that flag, what does that flag say to you as a fan of the Dash, and just a fan in general?
Oh man, Jake with that flag is just
Iconic, isn't it?
It's iconic. It's legendary. It's like
Yeah.
no matter what you see, it's like him like waving that flag just proudly. It's just he sets the standard as a fan, and like seeing him just like wave that flag, you just want to like get on that level, just and like you want to find a flag and just wave it just as much or even more. And so really that's just the whole like vibes they bring, especially like with appearance. I feel like that's something they do a little bit better than the SGs for the Dynamo. Aside from like bringing all the different flags, they find ways to like really just color the stadium. Like they have flags for each player who isn't from like a flag representing each player on the team, like whether it's out of the country or some of them are states. So it's just really like they bring not just the sound, but like visually, it's just awesome.
Yeah, so I asked you the question earlier, kind of pointedly to our people watching and people listening later on, about, hey, it's not just enough to talk about the Dash. We got to show up when we can as well and support the Dash that way. Get involved, especially if you want to see the Dash grow, especially if you want to see the Dash support grow. Those things are required. So I'm going to ask you this question, because Sarah's not here to ask this question to, and Jake and Chat can chime in if he needs to as well. If someone's interested in joining BCR after they've heard all the really cool stuff that that we were just talking about, and they're interested in helping support the Dash and helping support BCR, how do they get involved and how do they do that? Where do they go?
Honestly, it's pretty simple. Like whenever I first came to the game, I just saw Jake's flag, and it's hard to miss. It really is. And so you just kind of walk up to them and just say, "Hey, what's up?" And honestly, they'll bring you in. Like for me, I just kind of say, "Hey, I kind of wanted to join, the supporters group," and instantly I just got like a BCR wristband, and they just kind of like let me in and into the whole idea of how everything works. It's just come on, knock in, and say hi, and you're in. It's really there's not much you need to do.
Yeah, Jake echoes pretty much the same sentiment. Reach out to Sarah on game day and just join us. Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. I've haven't been able to make it to any dash matches this season. It's just been working. Life is crazy. But I will tell you that's not true, Jake. Don't lie. I'm just kidding. No, they don't bite and they don't fight. That should be a chant. We don't bite. We don't fight. Uh, it rhymes. It works. Um, but if there's anything I could say about BCR, if there's anything I could say about Sarah, say about Jake, say about Hattie, say about anybody that's involved with it, Mela as well, of course, and the other individuals that are involved with BCR, they're all very welcoming. I know Sarah can at times have a bit of, especially in game day mode, where she's just so focused that she's kind of got that like I'm gonna call it the bit of a gruff personality, like kind of external reflection. But I can tell you that she's still approachable, and if you do approach her and just say hi, and do me a favor, tell her that you heard about them from us. That would be really cool, actually. She might like crack a smile. But just approach them. It doesn't have to be Sarah. It can be Jake. If you see Jake waving that huge flag and you're like, dude, I want to go hang out with that guy. Trust me, Jake's open to hanging out with anybody. Mahalo. Um, but yeah, go find Jake. He's hard to miss at this point because he's iconic with that flag. So go find the flag, go stand, go chant, go cheer, go yell and scream your head off. Just hang out in the section and have fun. Trust me when I say this, the more that we as fans of the Dynamo, of the Dash, of the Houston Dynamo FC club, Houston soccer in general, the more that we can support the club, which means supporting both the Dynamo and the Dash. It's not enough to just support the Dynamo. We also need to support the Dash and support them as much as we can. And truthfully, they probably need it more than the Dynamo. The Dynamo are not necessarily going anywhere. The Dash probably aren't either. But trust me, it goes a long way for the players to see that supporter section beginning to fill up and more people coming out and supporting them. And it means a lot to them personally. And it does the same in the Dynamo to some extent, but there's a lot more supporters with the Dynamo because EB is such a huge presence on the Dynamo side, whereas that is not there with the Dash side. So if you show up and you want to have your presence really felt and really known, trust me, 137, 138 on game day, Dash day, trust me, you go, and you will not be the same for it in a very positive way.
For sure, everyone over there on the Dash side would just love it. At the end of games, they usually interact with fans more than the Dynamo has ever done. And so, really, the more people that come out, the louder we are, they'll feel it, they'll love it, and honestly, they'll probably reflect on the pitch as well. And look behind Sean's head, you'll see both crests. One club mentality.
Right. That's right. I got that from the season ticket holder. From the season ticket holder package, and believe me, that has been up on my wall every show since. And I am a true believer. Anybody who watches the show, anybody who's listened to the show knows I'm a true believer in one club mentality. I think it's important. I think the more that we can embrace that, the better it is for everybody, not just the Dash side, but also the Dynamo side as well. And trust me, everything that we can do to support the Dash does make a difference. So let's talk their match from this weekend. Tigres versus Houston Dash here in Houston at BBVA, soon to be, I guess, PNC Stadium. Not that it changes much for me anyways. It's still the same stadium, just different name. Look at your reaction. Is there anything from that match that shocked you to see? Or any highlights that you feel are important for anybody who missed that match to know about? Things like that.
Seriously, I mean, Dash popped off. 5-1 was the end of the day. And we saw two players, Makame Gomera Stevens and Rivasali, score their first goals for the Dash. And so, really, just watching them play, it's like they decided to come alive, and hopefully, this is the statement that they're setting for the rest of the season. It's just they completed their passes, made unbelievable crosses, connections, and it's like along with the Dynamo, when they just in their recent run of things, it was just an impressive like grow and glow up. And so I would highly recommend anyone who just rewatch the highlights, or if you can rewatch the game, just do it. It's just one of the best Dash games I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and it wasn't just it wasn't just one player. It was just about every player playing absolutely up to the to the level of the game, so to speak, and the level of the match. And it was really nice to see. It was really good to see, and I think it highlights how good this team can be. Not that we didn't know that Challenge Cup winners last year, just saying. But at the same time, it's a good reminder of that, and it's good to see it and to know that, yeah, when this team is clicking on all cylinders, and it doesn't necessarily matter who's available, who's not available, but when this team is absolutely clicking on all cylinders, they are hard to stop.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with Rachel Daly and Jane Campbell and Christine Mewis and Abby Dahlkemper all out. We still showed up, like both on attack, defense, and Lindsay Harris really was just doing a great job in goalkeeping. So they really all showed up against, especially a team that won the Mexican Liga MX Cup. And
Femenil, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
the Feminine Cup, yeah. And it's interesting to me because with those players out, your top, 5 or 6 players on the team, although Shea Groom would probably have a little bit of edge if I said that, and she heard it, among other players that would have the same thing. But to your point, Lindsay Harris, when she started earlier in the season when Jane Campbell was off at Olympic qualifiers, I don't remember where it was. When
Olympics, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, that. When she was out for that, Lindsay Harris stepped up huge and stepped up in a big way. And so it doesn't surprise me at all. But at the same time, it shows that when Jane is ready to move to that, move on, whether it's to another team or overseas or whatever, when she's ready for that move, we are in very good hands and we are in capable hands. And I'm almost like at that point where I want to see Lindsay Harris get more opportunities even when Jane is back. And here's why, because eventually Jane is going to move on, and you want that player to be ready to step into that role full time. And the other nice thing is we don't have to worry about Lindsay Harris getting a call up right now. We do kind of have to worry about that with Jane Campbell.
Yeah, for sure. Just at times, when you lose like such essential players, you kind of feel like you want to sweat. But then just the way that Hoopla, also Lindsay Harris's name, just shows up, brings the energy and plus the distribution. It's just like, yeah, like you want someone like that to be competing with Jane Campbell.
All right. Well, we've talked Houston Dash, and we've talked a lot Houston Dash. Obviously, playoffs are coming up, right? If I'm not mistaken, end of the season is like here, right around the corner. I've lost track of where we are in the season, but it's not far off. I know that.
Yeah. No,
And then go ahead.
Yeah, it's close. It's really like the last string of games. I think our last home game for the Dash will be mid October or third week of October. So it's our chances to get in. We are now. We have to start capitalizing now. The next string of games.
Absolutely. To Jake's point, the Dash are currently one slot out of postseason contention. They need to win at least the next couple, if not, just win out. Win out and you're in. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I don't care who's above you in the table. If you win out, you're definitely going into playoffs. With that being said, though, all right, Dash, we're moving on to Dynamo. We're moving on to League Cup and CCL. But first, Dynamo. Let's talk about the Texas Derby. What an absolute match. The Dynamo have proven once again at home that they are more than capable of finding the win and doing it in convincing fashion. With that being said, they obviously surrendered 2 goals, the second goal coming a lot later than I would have liked. And further to the point, offering opportunities to FC Dallas right in front of goal a couple of times late in the match. Also, can we get new refs for the Dynamo as well as the Dash? Because 7 minutes of stoppage time in the first half and what ultimately ended up being about 9.5, 10 minutes in the second half look, I realize Lundy went down with his dislocated knee. I realize we had other little, things going on at various point, multiple, pauses for very short video reviews. All of these different things going on. A penalty, obviously, awarded to Tim Parker for being taken down in the box, and all that went along with that. But even still, I mean, they had the 9-minute clock on the screen, and it ended up being more than 9 minutes in the second half. Unless you're talking the first half, yeah, it ended up more than 7 minutes in the first half too. But either way, it's still a crap ton of additional time, and on a match that comes the third match in 7 days, that is 8 days. That is a huge ask of your team, of your players, because that's not just 90 minutes now. We're talking more than 100 minutes of soccer being played in a single match within a 180-minute period, basically. Let me get your thoughts on the refs. Do you feel like, other than the stoppage time, do you feel like they were fair, or do you feel like even like they were unfair and then the stoppage time only made it worse?
John, I thought they were absolute trash. Just absolute trash. Like, there were just a bunch of missed calls here and there, and plus, I thought there were a few dirty hits from some FC Frisco players coming in, and especially in that last bit to Michael Nelson with that nosebleed. It's just, what were they doing? I felt like I was watching the game and they were just off watching something on Netflix.
It's interesting. I was going to say, it's interesting real quick. It's interesting because if you watch most other MLS matches, especially derbies, the number one thing that happens in a derby is the refs will protect the goalkeepers. That didn't happen in this match. They were more than happy to let Michael Nelson get barreled over, get kicked in the face with a cleat, and not even award a foul, let alone a yellow card. And I mean, it was at a pivotal point in the match where it definitely should have at least been a card. Sorry, I didn't mean to chime in, but adding to what you're saying. Continue. Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, it's just watching that game. It's just, I understand derby games are games you want to be dramatic. You want players to keep moving on, but at the same time, there's got to be a level of like protection to certain players in general, and like you got to let it go on. But there was also a few times where where fouls weren't after they were called, even though I felt like at times the Dynamo had the advantage and could have kept moving, but they just kind of called it, whistled it, and just let everyone from Frisco just climb back into their half. And so I thought that was really just disadvantageous to us. And so, I mean, I'm not trying to say that we could have scored a fourth or a fifth, but there was just some bad calls here and there that really just kind of contributed to the way the rest of the game unfolded.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with you. And I'm normally not one who does specifically target the refs, especially in a win, because, hey, you came away with a win. We came away with a PK when it mattered, all of that. But at the same time, there were definitely many, many moments throughout that match where you had to sit there as a fan of the Dynamo. And I know that Frisco fans felt the same way, where there were just calls that didn't make sense or calls that weren't just flat out weren't called. And there were repeated incidents, especially in the first half, where a Frisco player, and they showed it on replay in slow motion, actually stomped on our player's, like, flat out on his foot, on his ankle. And the ref called the foul, but he didn't even give a card for it. And I'm like, hey, that's at least got to be a VAR review for this, right? And I don't even think they reviewed it. So another instance where, hey, I don't like to throw things on the ref, but, at the same time, this is one of those situations where, yeah, we did win. But clearly, if that type of officiating is going to continue through the rest of the season, it makes it monumentally harder for us to climb that mountain to get back into playoff positioning.
Yeah, even with that, it's just we're going to see a few more players just probably end up on the bench due to injury. Studs out with no card. Come on, guys.
Yeah, it's a shame. But with that being said, let's talk about somebody who, from the player perspective right now, is absolutely in fuego, in Fafa Pico. Now, with that being said, I want to add a caveat to this that Fafa Pico has elevated his game because he now has Darwin Quintero to set him up, to pass him those balls through and over and around and put him into prime positions to be able to either get the assist to Griffin Dorsey or to get the goal himself. All of these things make a big difference. I've talked to Mark about it a few times previously on the show. That look, when you have somebody like Darwin Quintero that can pull players and defenders away from guys like Fafa and Griffin Dorsey, what happens is when those defenders are pulled away or pulled more central, you have more room to work with as a Fafa or a Griffin Dorsey, which means you can run at defenders, you can play different balls, you have different options that you can do. So yeah, I mean, Quintero obviously elevates the play of everybody around him, but specifically, we are seeing the play of Fafa Pico elevated to a whole nother level that I know at least Mark Segovia was not expecting.
Yeah, unlike Mark, I'm going to show Fafa lots of love. I think he was just one of our best players on the pitch, not just in the recent run of matches, but I just think he's been pretty great throughout this entire season. He's kind of been the guy who's been, bringing the ball into, the final third, especially into the box, and sure, especially during that 16 unfortunate week period where we didn't win any or didn't win any games. Like he was the one who's kind of like making the most amount of plays and bringing the most amount of like action there, and especially now. And Darwin Quintero was just, I can't tell you the last time I saw a through ball that led to a goal before him.
It's been a long time. It was probably actually the last time you saw it was probably from Darwin Quintero before, like in last season, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just seeing him on the pitch, just like bringing it full spirit. And honestly, when he ran into the stand after he scored his penalty, I thought that made my day.
And for those that don't know, he wasn't just running into the stand to celebrate in the stands. He was running to his family. So, hey, say what you will, but that was absolutely warranted. I had no problem with it. He obviously didn't get a fine or anything from Disco, nothing like that. So, all credit to him, and I think it was valuable for him and valuable for his family. And look, I don't know about you, but if there's one player that I absolutely want to see in orange in 2022, it's Darwin Quintero at this point. I know he's a high salary player, but when he's on the pitch, this team is just completely different. Now, with that said, obviously it's going to depend on who we bring in as GM. We'll get to that in a minute. But before we get to that, another player who's stepped up is Griffin Dorsey, a player that nobody expected, obviously, at the beginning of the season because he wasn't even on the roster at the beginning of the season, who has now stepped up. A player that we thought Pasher was going to end up being that player, who's unfortunately gone down with injuries and not been available for very long stretches of time. We brought in Corey Baird, thought he might be that guy, and then he got injured. And so Griffin Dorsey stepping into that opening, that opportunity and taking it. And I think the last three matches, he has shown full force why he deserves to stay in that position for right now.
Yeah, Griffin Dorsey was exactly the type of person I thought Corey Baird was going to be. It's just like how he showed up, especially in the Austin game and in the Texas Derby. It's just he really kind of like brought the heat, like brought the trouble, just came in fast, especially within, what was it, in the Austin game when he came in with the 58-second goal. It's just he is something that's going on in that locker room for both him and Fafa, and then many others just coming in with like the best like form of their lives, and really it's just that kind of like determination is just what we as Dynamo fans want to see happen and hoping to see throughout the rest of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jake brings up in the chat as well about Michael Nelson. Our goalkeeper changes have been good for us as well. I agree. Look, it's not a knock on Merritt necessarily. I thought he, played as well as he really could have, with the exception of a few opportunities where he just didn't get the ball or whatever. But at the same time, Michael Nelson has also stepped up into that role, and he's laying a claim to becoming the permanent starting goalkeeper looking at 2022. And again, 2022 is not that far away. We're already near the end of September, looking into October. And we know middle of October, end of October, somewhere right around there is where playoffs will basically begin. So much like with the Dash, we are in that home stretch, and it is absolutely important and absolutely vital to this team to get points where they can. And if you're going to get points, especially on the road, but if you're going to get points, you need your goalkeeper to step up and make saves at very big times. And so far, Michael Nelson has found a way to do that. And he had a couple of major saves in that Frisco match and a couple in the match against Austin that were just crystal clear to me. This guy needs to start. This guy needs to continue getting minutes, because the more time that he gets, the more minutes he gets, the more opportunities he gets, the better he's going to get. And the better he gets, the better for us, because that's a guy you can keep around long term for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to show Marriage some love. I think it's just that with the fact that we went through as long as we did with the amount of losses, and it's just that kind of like hurts you on
Sure.
a mental level. So I can see why he wasn't performing to the best of his ability. Like with a lot, there's more weighing on him than just like the gloves. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and see, well, at this point, you have to have that competition between Nelson and Marriage to be the number one. Because at the end of the day, you need the person who will give you that clean sheet, who will give you those saves, who will save your game and give you those 3 points.
Yeah, and again, it's not to discount Marriage at all. I think my biggest thing, and the reason why I would like to see Michael Nelson become that permanent starter, is he doesn't take up an international roster slot, which unfortunately Marriage does right now. And your goalkeeper is that one position where you really feel like, do I really need to take up an international roster slot, or is that a position that I could afford to go with a domestic guy? I don't know, Michael Nelson, and still get the same amount of the same output, if you will, the same value for my money. And I can guarantee you, Michael Nelson's contract is a whole lot smaller than Marco Marich's. But enough about that. It's about time. I've been timing this specifically. It is time to talk a little bit Leagues Cup and CCL. Uh, Tell me your thoughts, because this was the one thing you wanted to talk about coming onto the show. You even called it out to me, like, hey, are we talking about this? And I'm like, yeah, of course we're talking about it. So tell me your thoughts.
I can't tell you how I'm excited about this with the new Leagues Cup and the expansion of the CCL. I think it's going to be big for the MLS. I think it's going to be a big game changer, and honestly, I think it's going to force a lot of clubs to realize that okay, we need to start investing into our club as much as someone like Seattle, like especially with this new Leagues Cup that's bringing in every team between like the MLS and Liga MX. That like you have to like be prepared, or else you're just gonna get yourself drowned out like 5-0 and be outshunned by fans, like, especially like fans from Mexico. They're like all those teams. They have diehard supporters that'll travel everywhere, and they also have many fans within the U.S. And so, if you don't want to be, that club that has who becomes the home stadium for the away fans, you gotta have to start investing, and that's going to be a big part of how this Leagues Cup is going to play out. And plus, everything about the style, especially having it like everything like league play stopped, and then having just a March Madness meets World Cup style tournament. I think it's just gonna be a great chance for fans to like come out, and you're gonna see a lot of like teams. You're gonna have some Cinderella stories. And this is gonna be a chance for like teams like I want to say the Dynamo, like to face some Liga MX clubs and win, and then get that confidence and find their way up and improve. And so to me, that's just kind of like a big portion of why I think this is a big move in the right direction for our league, for our team, and just a, the first step in the right direction and making something like our league similar to what you have in leagues in Europe.
Yeah, I am very excited. I think to see something like this take shape. I think this is probably what has been rumored to be that whole merger between MLS and Liga MX. It's basically the North American Cup. It includes teams from Liga MX. It'll include all teams from Liga MX. It'll include all teams from MLS. It will also include teams from USL Championship. It will include teams from the Canadian Premier League. I can speak. So yeah, it's a huge opportunity. It is like a bolstered version of the U.S. Open Cup, which, by the way, will still take place. But my favorite thing about this is that they're taking a month off league play. All three leagues, or all four leagues technically, are taking a month off in the middle of summer, like towards the end of summer, I guess, in order to give room for this tournament specifically. And that to me speaks so highly. Yes, it's a cash grab. Yes, they're out here trying to make money on it, and they're going to make money hand over fist. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, it's a great example of something I've always preached, which is the Open Cup is so much of a slugfest because you have teams that are playing short weeks, those same weeks that they're playing their matches in the Open Cup. And so doing this for this type of tournament, it helps elevate the prestige because you know the best players will be available unless they're injured. The best players are going to be able to be rested for this type of tournament. And the best part is this gives you an opportunity to play your youth in very meaningful games, especially early in the competition. And then much like teams in the Champions League or much like teams in the UEFA competitions do overseas, you have a chance to play your youth early and then play your senior team late and still get your club that silverware. And it's going to be prestigious silverware. It's not just going to be, I don't know, Leagues Cup thing that nobody cares about. This Leagues Cup is actually going to be something very valuable to have, as that it will grant you, if I'm not mistaken, it grants you a berth into what is it? I
The
read it.
CCL, yeah.
The berth into CCL. Thank you. So that's huge, right? Because if you can sustain for 1 month time at the excuse me, at the end of summer, if you can put all the pieces together for that, don't even worry about your season, but you can put all the pieces together for that, much like we did in the Open Cup in 2017. If you can do that and come away with the win and beat the Liga MX teams, beat the Canadian Premiership teams, beat the other MLS and USL championship teams, then you get the automatic berth into the CCL. You know how we know how huge that is. We know how huge that was for the Dynamo. Just imagine that being the case with a competent GM that's able to actually find talent to use that additional money on. And trust me, there will be money available for teams that do succeed at this in large quantities. Because even a berth into CCL is worth it's a cool 250, 500,000, something like that. That goes straight to your budget. That is additional money you can spend on a DP, additional money you can spend on TAM players or other salaried players. So there's huge opportunity here. The one thing, of course, is we have to wait until 2023 for the start of this tournament, but that's okay. I'm okay waiting a year and a half, or 2 years, because frankly, I know that it'll probably take us that long to get the rebuild fully going and fully moving forward. But yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up to me, and I'm so glad that we're having a chance to talk about it. So let me ask this question: if you had to pick your top 3, 4, 5 teams that you want to face in this competition in 2023, I want at least one Liga MX team. I want at least 2 or 3 MLS teams and 1 USL Championship team. If you want to throw a Canadian Premiership team out there, go for it. But at least the Liga MX team and some MLS and USL Championship teams.
Yeah, I definitely want to have the Dynamo test their mettle, especially after 2 years of rebuilding against either a mid-side Liga MX team, just to show how we stand. I mean, it's a good way to gauge yourself and a good way to grow. And I do want to see some more league play with some of the teams in the Eastern Conference, and obviously some USL teams that do come up and that are able to at least hold their own. Would be a good way just to fight some of the underdogs and keep yourselves humble.
Are there any
So,
teams in particular that you want to face off against?
honestly, if we could just have expand the Texas rivalry, see the El Paso Locomotive. They've been
I
doing
hadn't
really
even
well.
considered that.
They've been doing really well in the USL. It looks like they're about to win the La Copa Tejas for their division.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have San Antonio FC from the USL Championship as well. That would be very interesting because, man, there's a lot of former Dynamo players that have gone that direction as well. So, and I've traveled to the San Antonio FC stadium. I can tell you it's a nice stadium, relatively speaking. And, your seats are fairly close to the pitch. So, and that would be one that's like a 3-hour drive. It's not even that far. So, that's an opportunity right there for a easy road trip that would be absolutely a blast. What about Liga MX? Are there any Liga MX teams? I saw somebody say Club America, Club America, if you want. Any Liga MX teams that you want to see the Dynamo face off against? A Pumas, a Pachuca, Toluca,
Yeah,
Tijuana.
so my first Dynamo game coming back, it was back during Wilmer's era. During that phase of the Leagues Cup was Dynamo versus Club America. I mean, I don't want to come out of the gate playing, one of the all-time greats of Liga MX. I would like to see us more play teams like Pachua or over in Tijuana, and build our way up. Or if you want to take on some teams like Leon, they've been doing really well so far. in what the current Leagues Cup or the club the CCL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just kind of build our way up. Kind of like, I mean, at the end of the day, do you really want to just go out and fight Chivas or Club America? I mean, I get it. It'd be entertaining, but for a team like ours, I want to see ourselves like build up, fight our way through, and kind of like earn the respect that we deserve.
I would so me personally, and this is just me personally, I would love another shot at Tigres right now. Not right now, but in 2 years. I think in 2 years we'll have a team that'll be one that'll be really interesting to watch up against a team like Tigres. And Tigres have such strong traveling support that boy, that would be. I mean, our stadium was full, and 90% of it was Tigres fans. But excuse me. Uh, any other? You said Eastern Conference. Any specific teams in the Eastern Conference of MLS that you would like to see us face in the League's Cup in 2023?
Yeah, personally, for me, this is no reason other than just like past experience. I want to see us play the Revolution. I mean, my first Dynamo game ever when I was a little kid back in 2012 was the New England Revolution, and it was just a fun game to be at. We won, and it was back during that era. But see, I want us to play them and just take cracks at like some of the current greats over there, like see how far Philadelphia has gone with the Union, and just really test our metal against them because we've kind of gone back and forth with some of the greats here in the Western Conference, especially with the Galaxy. I mean, everyone kind of like holds them high, especially with their history, but you know they haven't been able to beat us in the last 4 games, 5 games. So I mean, I kind of want to like expand our horizons and go after like some of these better teams on the East that everyone likes to talk about.
Yeah, give me an NYCFC matchup. Give me a Miami or Orlando. Yeah, they're all great teams, but I do, I support my Dynamo. I believe that we can beat them, especially where we're playing right now. All right, so enough of that. The one topic that I know everybody's been really truly waiting for, and we're going to extend this topic. It's going to be a long discussion, so get ready, Hattie. Uh,
Yep.
that's your heads up. I want to talk GM candidates, domestic GM candidates for MLS, and specifically for the Dynamo. The Athletic posted an article yesterday on the 21st. If you need the link, I'm sure we can post it somewhere. Maybe I can post it in chat. I don't know. We'll see here in a minute. But I'm going to run through the names real quick, and I'm going to tell you where they're from, and then we'll discuss them each individually. So they've got Chris Albright listed at the top of the list, and this list is in no particular order. Chris Albright is the currently the Philadelphia Union technical director, and then there's Todd Donovan. People remember that name, I'm sure, from his former player days. He is currently the Sacramento Republic general manager and president. And then there's Ned Grabavoy, who's currently the Portland Timbers technical director. I'm going to shy away from him in this discussion only because he just signed this year an extension with Portland Timbers for another couple of years, 2-3 years, something like that. So it would be surprise me to see him leave Portland Timbers. There's Will Kuntz from Los Angeles FC. He's their assistant general manager, not high on my list, not somebody I'm anticipating. There's Chris Litch from San Jose Earthquakes. He's their current technical director. And he's an interesting one just because of his amount of MLS experience. We'll get to that in a minute. Ali Mackey from Nashville SC. He's their assistant general manager. I've got some thoughts on him that make him one of the guys that I would dark horse candidate type of guy. Amos McGee from Minnesota United. He's their director of player personnel. Pat Onstad, one of my favorites, Columbus Crew technical director and vice president of their soccer operations up there with Columbus Crew. Issa Tall from Columbus Crew as well. He's their director of player personnel. You have Craig Weibel, who, of course, I'm also high on, Seattle Sounders' current sporting director under Garth Lagerwey, and a guy that, obviously played for the Dynamo, much like Pat Onstad. They also brought up Brian Bliss, who's the director of player personnel for Sporting Kansas City. And they also brought up Lino DiCuolo from he's actually nowhere right now. He was in the league office doing various roles there as basically the dealing with roster and budget guidelines, managing transfers and approving contracts, and then other stuff along that lines. And then he left in the league in 2020 after his most recent role, which was senior vice president of competition and player relations. And the reason he's even on this list is because he has spoken with multiple MLS teams already. about potential GM positions. So he is someone that teams have looked at. So it wouldn't surprise me to potentially see him land somewhere. With that being said, I'm going to throw the two names out there that obviously stick out to me the most, and they're the ones we've continued to talk about: Pat Onstad and Craig Weibel. And I want to just read a couple of the thoughts from the Pat Onstad section and a couple of thoughts from the Craig Weibel section when I find them. There we go. Pat Onstad has 4 years of MLS front office experience. He is considered to be he's considered to be a top talent evaluator with deeper insight into navigating MLS's rules. He was in the front office when Columbus Crew won the 2020 MLS Cup. He has a good relationship with Issa Tall, again, who has 7 years of experience himself in MLS front office. And he has helped bring assistant GM Corey Ray into the fold in order to help the development of youth. Onstad also has the longest track record of success in Columbus, which makes him, of course, among the most attractive GM candidates in the league. He's got multiple MLS Cups, obviously, to his name as a player and now as a front office personnel. He's helped build the Crew into what they've become. And he obviously has a sheer amount of MLS understanding and really in navigating kind of that salary cap, salary budget, the complexity of the league rules and roster rules, and player acquisition rules, the different budget types that there are, different roster types that there are, or roster slot types that there are, DPs, TAM, GAM. Obviously you've got your homegrowns, you've got your, bottom of the roster, middle of the roster, top of the roster, USL slots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. List goes on and on and on. But Pat Onstad, clearly he's a guy that has MLS experience in front office, which is my number one thing that I want. Number two, he's been successful in that time. And number three, he's already known as a guy who is able to help build that development pathway, which is something we really desperately need to figure out with the Houston Dynamo. Give me your thoughts on Pat Onstad, and is there any other candidate besides Pat Onstad or even Craig Weibel, for that matter, that you are most high on? And then we'll kind of talk through these other guys as well, just so that people know the names in case they come up again.
Personally, for me, aside from Onstad Weibel, for me it's Chris Albright. After just hearing his name and seeing him on the his experience, he's had over 7 years within, as first as an assistant technical director and then as the actual technical director for the Philadelphia Union. And within their years, they kind of found their way to running high through the U.S. Open Cup, and then finally winning the Supporters Shield in 2020. I think that kind of, for me, what I want to see is the history of success, and in that case, recent success. So to me, that's why Onstad and Albright kind of like really just scream yes to me. Weibel, I think, is a pretty good option, especially what he's done at RSL. I would like to see someone who's actually built more and actually won something. So to me, that history of winning is really important.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Chris Albright is currently linked, I think, with the RSL job. That may not be right. They might be looking at Dugan. If RSL is maybe looking at Dugan right now. Either way, Chris Albright would be a heck of an acquire, just because he's got so much experience, just in MLS front offices, but he has so much successful experiences, and much like Onstad, he's also known for being able to develop, build, and solidify that pipeline and the transition point between youth academy to USL and then to MLS. And it's been clear. You look at the way that Philadelphia Union are currently putting out prospects after prospect after prospect that are playing incredibly well defensively, midfield, forwards, name it, they're all there, every position. And we know we have a group of kids in our academy right now, U15s, I won't even say down to like the U10s, U12s right now, U15s, U17s, and obviously the U23 team. There's plenty of talent, plenty of players that are capable. We just need somebody who can help build out the pieces and put the pieces in place to create that pipeline, to create that transition point, to help ease that transition. And I brought it up the last show that the Dynamo hired a guy specifically for that role, Tom Vigil, I believe his name is, in order to help bridge that gap between the youth academy and then into professional soccer. And that's like literally his whole role. And so, somebody who can help that from a general manager perspective, from a president of, vice president of soccer operations, technical director, whatever you want to call them, whatever their position, official title is, doesn't matter. Somebody who's in charge of the business and soccer operations side of it, because Tab needs somebody to help him out. If Tab is the one to stick around as coach, again, a GM coming in, they're likely going to get to pick who their coach is. And frankly, if it's if it's a Pat Onstad coming in, a Chris Albright, a Craig Weibel, I would even go so far as to say, where is he at? Chris Lech from San Jose Earthquakes, another guy who, if he were to come in, I would be okay with. I trust him, to be able to find a decent coach, although hopefully not Matias Almeida. We won't go there. But there are other names on this list that just are kind of interesting names, but they're names that I don't think I'd be as comfortable with as the kind of top 3 or 4 that we've listed. A guy that sticks out that would be one that would be kind of a dark horse. I mentioned he would be a dark horse, but also somebody that wouldn't surprise me necessarily. Ali Mackey from Nashville SC. He's got 3 years of experience with MLS front offices. He's done a pretty solid job with Nashville, all things considered. And he's a guy who understands the business side of MLS, way better than the player side necessarily. And he's the type of general manager that you can bring in to pair with a guy like a Tab Ramos or another coach who understands the technical side, understands the player personnel side, understands how to work with the players, understands how to deal with that side of things, and somebody who is okay with giving up, relinquishing scouting duties to let other people scout on his behalf. And frankly, we need that. I'm tired of having the same guy scouting for our team. Thankfully, he's no longer with us. But I feel like we need somebody to come in who's a true scout, somebody who is an actual scout, to come in and help us scout talent that other teams aren't already scouting. I'm tired of being linked to the same guys that other teams are already scouting and have usually already passed on. Look, I don't need a guy that Barcelona gave up on. No offense. I'd much rather a guy that a guy that's starting to come up on the upswing instead of a guy that's kind of on the downward trend. Tomas Martinez comes to mind, a guy that definitely was not a huge prospect when we got him.
Yeah, no, for a second I was looking up Mackey from Nashville, and little sidebar, but looks like I didn't know that the Wolf family owned them and Orlando. I thought that was a little fun fact.
Yes, they are. Well, no, the Wolf family sold Orlando. They don't own Orlando anymore. Orlando are now owned by the Minnesota Vikings owner. So not an issue anymore.
Okay, so my bad then. But yeah, no, seeing how Nashville's kind of like popped up in the last 2 years, already making playoffs last year, and then currently second place in the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
That's, again, for me, results are what matter, and seeing that kind of like improvements, especially coming up from from starting off as a new MLS club. I mean, I don't think you'll ever have something like the Dynamo winning back-to-back seasons, but what they're doing is pretty good, especially with what we've seen in the last few years for new expansion clubs.
And the thing I like about Mackey, and again, I'm not leaning Mackey. It's just I'm bringing it up because I think it's important. Is he was a player agent, so this he understands, like I said, the business side better than probably anybody else on this list. But he was a player agent for a agency group that includes clients like Gareth Bale, Serginho Dest, and Jack Grealish. And I, look, I'm not expecting to get a Jack Grealish or even a Gareth Bale for that matter, but Serginho Dest, I mean, there are names within their client base that absolutely would be networked immediately and linked immediately with a club like the Dynamo that are going to have, I think by my count, something like 15 to 17 roster slots available because there's that many expiring contracts in the offseason. I mean, it's just a sheer exodus of players this offseason. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 expiring contracts in December of this offseason. I mean, that's a lot of players to have to consider. And it's good, if I'm a potential candidate, a potential GM, and I'm looking at the situations that are out there, the Dynamo have the best situation for a GM to come in and make his mark immediately, because when you have that many players on expiring contracts, your budget is basically going to be nearly empty, like, are nearly available, to, like, completely available to you. You're going to have all the budget space to work with. All of your DP slots, I believe, are nearly open. You're going to have the opportunity to get rid of the heavy international slot usage on your goalkeeper. You're going to have a bunch of other international slots that are going to open up. You're going to be able to pick your players that you want, and you're going to have the, supposedly, according to Ted Segal, you're going to have the resources. He keeps saying resources, not money, resources to be able to find the players and pay the players that we want to bring in, the players at that top talent level of what we expect coming into MLS. And players like a Diego Rossi, players like a Carlos Vela. God, I can't even say those words just came out of my mouth. Players like a Chicharito, players like a Nico Ladero, players like a Diego Valeri. Hopefully not the current Diego Valeri. He's like 39. I don't need that guy. He's too old now. But a younger version of those players, I think, is absolutely feasible, especially when you're turning over that many players potentially. It's also possible that a GM comes in and they see a lot of these players and they go, "Yeah, I like a few of these players. I'm going to re-sign a few of them to contracts." But there's a large number of them that, frankly, I could see us part with. And in 2022, we're going to have almost a brand new roster. I mean, that's nearly as exciting as it can get for a fan of the Dynamo. We've struggled as much as we have this season. We're starting to look good. There are obviously bright spots on the roster, but at the same time, there's definitely even better days ahead.
For sure. Yeah. When you told me that it was that many players who are currently about to have their contracts expire, I didn't believe you. I really didn't.
I just
I
went and
believe
counted.
them.
That's why I counted.
Yeah. So it's just like it's insane. Like
Yeah,
we.
so I'm going to run through the list real quick, Hattie, just real quick. Marco Maric, Michael Nelson, obviously two goalkeepers. Alejandro Fuenmayor, no doubt he's gone. Minor Figueroa, if he's back, it's a miracle. Sam Junqua, I love him. I don't know if he's talent enough to keep around. Matthias Vera, he's shown plenty this season. I wouldn't hate keeping him around. Darwin Seren, see you later, buddy. Boniat Garcia, I don't need you anymore, no offense. Player coach, maybe, if you want to be. Ian Hoffman, I haven't seen enough of him to really give any take either way. Juan Castilla, homegrown player. I haven't seen any of him, obviously. Nuka Lemoyne, same type of thing. Haven't seen nearly enough of him to make a determination on. Memo Rodriguez, I mean, I'd be perfectly fine if another MLS team wants him. I'm kind of done with him other than a super sub role. Fafa Pico, he's shown an awful lot. I'm not sure, kind of thing. It depends on the new GM coming in. Ariel Lassiter, I'm not sold. I haven't seen it. What I've seen, I've not been impressed with this season in particular. He came out on fire last season. This season hasn't shown it to me. Griffin Dorsey, he's shown me a lot recently, but there's so much that I feel that he's lacking in terms of pace that we really want at that position. Again, that could change with a different GM. You never know. Maxi Arudi, he's shown me a lot. I love what he brings. I love his fire. I love his passion. I love his play style. Especially in Tab's formation and Tab's system. But if I'm looking at that player for next season, I don't know if that's a player that I want in that position next season. I want somebody else. Tyler Pasher, I love him, but God, I hate his like his capability to just get injured at a moment's notice. I need a guy that I can rely on, a guy that I know is going to be able to start. Tyler Pasher's injury issues is the number one reason why he's not been an MLS force for any team. And why more MLS teams have not taken a look at him prior to us signing him out of USL.
I hear you there. But for me, I would love to keep Tyler Patrick. To me, I just see it as an unlucky season for him. And sure, there's the past, but he hasn't really like popped off as he has before. And his call up to the Canadian national team just shows how much of an impression he's made. And so I think give him I would sign him for another 2 years minimum. If that it's really up to the new GM, but I would love to see some more from him and see if he can just keep it up. Maxi Uridi, I also liked it. I mean, for the longest time, he was our lead goal scorer, and it wasn't just because there wasn't a lot happening, but he's the type of guy who'll run in, try to find the goal and steal it and put it right in the back of the net. So I could see him coming back. Same with Dorsey, and there's just a lot of people on this list that there's some of them that I would like to see gone, like Seren and Fuenmayor, but there's also a few others like some of the homegrown players and Nico Lemoyne. I just haven't seen enough of. I don't really know how to gauge them. So I can definitely see maybe a few of them can go on loan, or I really like. I can really see Marcelo Palomino coming back and just popping off. I would love to see him back. Oh, this is a pretty big list, and whoever is our GM, this is their chance to make the mark, to change like the history of the Dynamo, and really if you have someone like Weibel or Onstad, this is their chance to bring back the winning ways of the Houston Dynamo. Really kind of bring back that kind of like legend, that kind of like narrative.
The glory days, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So real quick, let's shift gears. Let's talk the match coming up on Saturday. That is Houston versus Minnesota in Minnesota. I have it on Good Word currently, and this may change. Stay tuned for changes. The Surge will be meeting up at Pitch 25 for away watch party. So if you're looking for a place to go hang out for away watch party on a Saturday evening, there's no Astros game that day at home. So come hang out and say hi to Sergio, Jeff, and the rest of the crew over there with the Surge. Sure, they'd love to have you. And it's Pitch 25, so it's got great beer, great food, and great friends. Which what more can you ask for a Saturday night? And Dynamo Soccer, yeah, that too. That's kind of important.
Big one, yeah.
Let me get your thoughts on this matchup coming up. Obviously, with Minnesota, you're looking at guys like Load and Fragapone and Reynosa, who's not been much of anything this season except for the few times he's played. And just all the other players that they have on that squad. Is there any one player from Minnesota that you can think of that you most single out that the Dynamo need to kind of mark closely or prevent getting the ball or prevent having open looks at goal?
Well, I haven't looked at the most recent injury report, seeing that the last time we played them, they just
they had
so
like
many
13
injured.
players total active, I believe.
Yeah.
And they had just signed Fernando Adi that like afternoon, so he was very readily available for them. They still beat us, by the way. Just reminder that hurts so much, so much. They have scored 2 goals against us in both prior matches, by the way, both here in Houston and on the road. Man, that's a number.
Yeah, that really kind of brought some sad boy vibes right now.
I'm not trying to bring the sad boy vibes. I'm just trying to like keep it real for our listeners. Chat, is there anybody for Minnesota United that you feel that the Dynamo need to be like really keyed on in particular? I still know Minnesota have a number of players that potentially may be injured as well. Still, so it'll be interesting to see who they end up actually starting. Because there's still going to be at least a few injuries that they're dealing with at this point.
Yeah, I mean, somehow we've always, in the most recent run of games, we've kind of made whoever starts like at the number 9 spot for Minnesota just seem like, okay, he's like the next big thing, and so we really just gotta have to clamp down, especially on the front 3. And I mean, if you want to call it, I mean, it is the Dylan Walpers Derby, so it's a derby. So you gotta show up, show out, and hopefully our recent run of games can finally put an end to this Minnesota like run at us. And so I think if we can just hold down the front 3 and part of the midfield, I'd say their center midfield, I think we can win this. I think we actually can take it to them and keep putting 3 points on the table for us.
Yeah, and of note, Reynoso is back. He made his return actually Saturday against LA Galaxy in the Minnesota United 3-0 drubbing of LA Galaxy at Alliance Field up there. So important to definitely mark Reynoso. Ethan Finley obviously is going to be a guy worth making sure he doesn't kind of, he's a slippery guy, especially up top on the wing, and he seems to just find ways to get out there. I mentioned Load, of course. You want to make sure that, especially in center of the field, that you're not giving him room to hit guys, out wide or up top. But man, just looking at the way that they've been playing, obviously to get a 3-0 drubbing of LA Galaxy this season, not one of the best teams, obviously in the West, but still a good team all the same. You have to be aware of what Minnesota can do. And especially with Reynoso back, that's a different team with Reynoso back. That's a guy who can score and score readily. And that is something that Minnesota have missed with him out for sure, even with Fernando Adi coming in to kind of help supplement that a little bit.
Yeah, and even if you want to look at Minnesota United as just like the last place within the playoff spots, they're still a playoff like running team. And if they could do something like the way like a 3-0 win against LA Galaxy, who's currently in fourth place, we got to be ready. We really have to like set up and just come in with game day mentality like 3 days before we even fly into Minnesota.
Yeah, so the question came into chat. When was the last time the Dynamo had a road win? I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was last year. I don't think we've won one on the road this season so far. I'm checking to tell you for sure the answer to that. Let's see. There we go. I mean, I'm pretty sure of that because we've only got 5 wins in the season to begin with. So
Yeah, there's none right now.
yeah. Team stats. That's what I'm looking for. By the way, WhoScored.com, a great place to get your team statistics, your player statistics, all the ins and outs of different games. Great place for that sort of thing. Oh man, I should have stuck on the away on that thing. Okay, it doesn't tell me. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Oh well.
We just know it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been long enough that we can't remember. That should speak enough, for what the deal is, I think there. Yeah, so obviously Minnesota is one of those teams that they love to hit you on the counter more so than hit you and hold possession. They're not necessarily a possession-based team. And the humor behind that is, so are we. We much prefer hitting you on the counter. We prefer that high pressure, that high line, getting you to make the mistake, and then capitalizing on that mistake. And so, you look at the way the two teams kind of shape up with that in mind. It is going to be a very tough match in Minnesota for the Dynamo. But right now, with the way that they're playing, with Darwin Quintero, here's the kicker. Darwin Quintero going back to Minnesota, it is his chance to play against his former team, a team that he felt gave up on him. Hear me when I say this. This is big for Darwin Quintero, which usually is going to mean big for our team. You've got a lot of players that are going to be extra amped for this matchup. Yeah, we haven't beat them at all this season. We haven't even drawn with them. No, we did draw them early with them in the season, but we haven't beaten them this season. We haven't won. Getting to do it in their home, especially since they're also in a playoff push, that would be huge, and it would be very important for our chances at even making the playoffs right now. We've got to start winning, and we've got to win consistently over the next month and a half or month. And so, we've got 4 or 5 games left, something like that. We've got to win basically out at this point if we want a shot at playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. To answer your previous question, our last road win was when we played Sporting KC at Kansas City when we won 5-2. Last big away game. But moving on, yeah, I think Quintero has a lot to prove. He knows that. He wants to show everyone who's doubted him, especially prior to his recent run of games. A lot of people were talking about. I remember mid-season they said sell him off. He's not playing. What's his worth? So at the end of the day, I think he's going to come in and he's going to want to either give himself a goal or just rain down assists. And I think if he doesn't walk away with a 2-0 win, I think he's going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I agree. I think he probably wants the same type of start we had against Frisco here at home. High pressure, forcing them to create the turnover, forcing the opportunity in front of goal, get the ball out wide, let Fafa or Griffin Dorsey, who you almost have to believe are going to start again, let them get on it and hope they can lash it into the back of the net. Look, if we can get an early lead on Minnesota, that changes the dynamic of this match tremendously. With that said, the one thing we can't do on the road is step off the front foot. We can't afford to step off the pedal. We've got to continue the pressure. We've got to continue the pace. And I'm not one for doing that for a full 90, but we have to do it consistently over the 90, which means that, yeah, you can rest for a minute, 2 minutes here and there, but you need to get back to it. You can't let yourself lull for too much because your body starts to not shut down, but starts to go into kind of wind down mode, cool down mode. And you start to come off that kind of high peak. So you need that high peak, and then you need to kind of sustain it with small bumps here and there. And the low points are just to let your body kind of recover for a minute before you get right back to it. And that's what's been successful. I mean, that's what's worked for us the last 3 matches, the last 2 home matches, of course. And the real question I guess I'm gonna have is, does Tab trot out again the 4-3 4-2 4-1-2-3 4-1-3-2? Yeah, 4-1-3-2. No, hold on. I can count. 4-2-3-1. 4-2-3-1. That's what we're playing with. 4-2-3-1, where he's got the 2 defensive mids. He's got kind of a central mid in terms of Darwin Quintero pushed up the pitch. You've got two wide midfielders in Griffin Dorsey and Fafa Pico, who are pushing up higher, but they start kind of at midfield. And then you've obviously got Maxi Rudy at the top, or Corey Baird coming in at the top of that spear, so to speak. Dynamo Insider, real quick, before we continue with the conversation, we have to beat them because we let them come into our house without key players, with a roster of 14 players, and we lost. Yeah, we were just talking about that. It was, it was disheartening to watch us go out there against a team literally coming in with only 2 subs, or only 1 sub other than a goalkeeper on their bench in Fernando Adi, and still they came away with the 2-0 win. I mean, that was disheartening, and it was at a point when we needed to go ahead and pull the win because we were struggling so much throughout the rest of that season before that point. We had such a long winless streak going into that match. So at that point, I mean, that would have changed, obviously, the outlook of a lot of things. But this is an opportunity to right the wrong, to right the ship, and get things continued in the right direction. And again, I believe it's going to fall to the feet of Darwin Quintero to be that guy. Now, enough on the Minnesota United. I want to come back to the GM talk, and I want to talk about this real quick. Is there any one position, Hattie, that you feel is quintessential to Dynamo's success moving forward with our new GM? And we know we're going to have a new GM. It's just a matter of who.
I think it kind of boils down to this. If we decide to keep Quintero, that's fine. But the 2 unessential positions for us are getting I feel like we should definitely get a striker that is going to be here to stay. That's going to be prolific, and having a attacking midfielder who's going to be there to help him get those goals. And so really, it's just, if any team that has these 2 positions locked and loaded, I think they're going to have a pretty great season. I mean, we already went to heaven and back just trying to really tighten up our defense, especially since we just got Teenage, then Parker, and if we want to focus on getting another left back or right back, that's also pretty big. But ultimately, it goes back to getting that offense that can really just make it click.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. You look at the teams that are successful. They have an attacking midfielder, usually a central attacking midfielder, and a striker, and they're usually paired very well. A Diego Rossi and a Carlos Vela, Ola Kamara and I can't think of DC's attacking midfielder. Just completely blank, but I know who he is. I mean, there's plenty of examples of that. It's not just them, but those are the ones that came up to mind immediately. But there are plenty of examples of successful pairings of that, and that is, I think, absolutely essential to any team who's looking to rebuild, especially a team that has struggled this season to consistently score goals, consistently, maintain leads. You have to have guys in particular in those positions that are also possession-oriented guys. I think we have a lot of counterattack guys, which is fine. The problem with counterattack guys, though, is they have one mode, and that's just always 100%, 100% of the time. They're always going. They have high motors, right? That's the thing we hear. They have high motors. They're just go, go, go. The problem with that is those guys wear down. Those guys have a higher tendency to get injured more often. Those guys pick up those muscle injuries more often. They overstretch for balls because they just don't know any other way to play. And we've seen, Fafa pick up knocks here and there. We've seen Corey Baird pick up injuries. We've seen, even Maxi Rudy came up with a little bit of a hamstring at one point. We've seen Tyler Pasher obviously out wide. There's plenty of examples across our team But the other thing is a possession-oriented team, even if you don't play possession the entire time, a possession-oriented team allows your defenders and allows your defensive mids and your center mids to kind of have a chance to breathe. With this counterattack style, it feels like they're having to push so high up that they then have to cover back and counter back almost immediately. And so they're constantly, constantly running hard and constantly in that full on mode as well. And that's just strenuous on any center back. Thankfully, we have two fairly athletic center backs in Tim Parker and Teenage Hadebe that are able to handle it. But that is a tough ask of defenders to do that on a consistent basis, and we've seen it late in matches where guys like Zarek Valentin out on the right, or even Adam Lundqvist or Sam Junqua, you see them get tired by the 70th, 75th minute and tracking back. They're not nearly as fast at recovery. And it just makes a world of difference when you have guys that are a little bit fresher, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit less exhausted, that are able to kind of hit those recovery runs.
Yeah, to touch on more on that, like we need guys who aren't playing like box to box for 90 minutes. I think that's what's hurt us in the past. We need to. It's just one of those cases where you got to play smarter and you got to know when to like go back, when to like move fast, and when to really put the pressure on. And especially seeing that in the off season, it really depends on who we keep. I mean, if we decide to keep Pasher and many of our wingers like Dorsey, and we still have Baird as well, then having that adept midfield to be able to distribute the ball from there to these attacking players will definitely help us get more goals next season.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All of that is to really say that, obviously with Ted Segal coming in as owner, he's already, in my opinion, he's made good strides. He's talked the talk for sure. This offseason will be his chance to really walk the walk, bring in the right guy at general manager, let the general manager make the decision on coach, bring in a good coach if Tab is not the guy. Oh man, that's amazing to me to even think about, really, honestly. And then bring in the players to supplement that. And it's a chance for Ted Segal to show that he understands, but also that he is truly going to back up what he said about providing the resources necessary to not only be competitive, but be successful. Look, we are technically a competitive team, right? We're competing week in, week out. We are not a successful team, and we haven't been a successful team under Gabriel Brenner's tenure as majority owner. Ted Segal obviously comes in. He has and is bringing an opportunity for us to greatly improve. And along with it, he clearly has a line that he considers to be a step too far for his front office personnel. And he made the decision. Don't let it get mixed up. Ted Segal made the decision to get rid of Matt Jordan. He understood that what Matt Jordan was providing to the team was not enough to keep Matt Jordan around any longer. That the time that we had with Matt Jordan was sufficient to make an educated guess as to what was going to happen if we continued with Matt Jordan at the helm as general manager and vice president of soccer operations. With that being said, there are plenty of candidates. We've already talked about a few of them. There are plenty of candidates that have the pedigree in MLS, have the pedigree as former players or former agents or former front office personnel in the league to make an immediate impact and in a very positive way. Pat Onstad was able to do that with Columbus Crew. Craig Weibel was able to do that with RSL. And now Craig Weibel has moved on to Seattle. These are two, in my opinion, of the top candidates for Dynamo GM. It would not surprise me to see Pat Onstad be that guy, and I would be perfectly okay with that. You should be too. Perfect person in terms of both personality, public persona, because he was a former Dynamo player. He knows what's going to be required of him in terms of in front of and in the public eye, and talking to fans and being in front of fans and not shying away like, I don't know, Matt Jordan liked to do. And then also, we've seen recently, and this is something Ted Segal has brought about just by the sheer nature of getting rid of Matt Jordan. The moment the announcement came out that Matt Jordan was axed and was gone, former players came out in droves on Twitter and social media to reinforce their support of the Dynamo. We hadn't seen a whole lot of them discussing Dynamo other than their frustrations. This was really the first time I'd seen them be this positive, and a lot of them were supporting one another. And to me, if that is the case and you want to get back in the good graces of your former fans, the previous fans that were in love with these players, you bring back a guy like a Pat Onstad or a Craig Weibel who holds legendary status within this club because of their time their time with the club during the MLS Cup runs. And believe me, that will help you win some of the fans back. With that being said, to answer Jake's question real quick, I'm a no on Brian Ching because when he was given the opportunity with the Houston Dash, he didn't do hardly anything of value. And frankly, I've heard bad stories. Nothing negative in terms of like things that he shouldn't be doing, just that he was not very good at his job and he didn't know what he was doing. Which I suppose that's a pretty big negative. But with that being said, either way, at the end of the day, we're at that point with Matt Jordan now gone. Ted Segal has his chance to prove that he can truly hold it down for H-Town. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully, Nestor's watching the show right now. He is not because he didn't mute us. So